Senator Durbin and I had a conversation about 45 minutes after the DREAM Act failed. We stayed in close contact and communication on the things of value and the necessary issues of this state and of the city of Chicago. And he and I were a little taken aback and a little bewildered. But we both agreed that the best antidote to that vote was getting together and coming back to Chicago, to this very room, this very afternoon, so that we can get re-energized, refocused, and march on to an incredible victory, which we know looms in the very near future. And I think it is especially important to be here this afternoon because I want to, sometimes it's just the record is not completely clear. Sometimes you just have to repeat the obvious until it is ultimately understood. There was a vote on the Senate floor in order to allow the defense appropriation bill to move forward. Clearly enunciated by Democratic leadership under Harry Reid that there was going to be a vote on the DREAM Act. I want you to know that 13 Republican senators have either co-sponsored, voted in committee, or on the Senate floor for the DREAM Act. And yet not one of them was present this past week when they had a chance to finally get it passed. 57 Democrats stood up firm. And I'm going to tell you something. I don't know who's co-sponsored what. I don't have to look at who's co-sponsored what. I know one thing. On November 3rd in this Congress, not the next Congress, I want to make sure there's a vote for the DREAM Act, and there's one way to guarantee it, and that's with the election of Alexis Janulias to the U.S. I didn't come here. My parents didn't come here as immigrants. They came here as migrants, though. My dad with his 10th grade education, my mom with a 7th grade education, and they came to the city in 1953. They didn't read, couldn't speak the language. They confronted lots of hostility and lots of barriers. You know, they persevered. And because America was great, I grew up in a bilingual household where only Spanish was spoken to me, but where English flourished, quite obviously. Where my parents had told me, hijo, estudie fuerte, sea bueno, sea honesto, que en este país tú puedes echar adelante. Son, study, work hard, be honest. And in this country, you will be given an opportunity. And I want Alexis Janulias to come to the U.S. Senate to afford the opportunity to future generations. And that's why we need to elect her. And let me just say that it is stark the differences. Look, I know Mark Kirk. I've worked with him on the floor of the U.S. I remember when there was a time, and Dick will remember this, when we used to, as Democrats and Republicans to Democrats, Democrats to Republicans, used to be able to extend a helping hand to the other side of the aisle in order to do what's good for America. I remember those times, and Mark Kirk was one of them. He came from the North Shore. He came as a moderate to the U.S. Congress. And now, who is he? Who is this man? A man who would deny the city of Chicago more teachers by voting against legislation that guarantees this state 15,000 additional teachers. Understand that. Yo quiero a alguien que va a ir al Senado a garantizar a esta ciudad más y mejores maestros. Ese es Alexis Janulias. I think about my 4th congressional district, and I think of the city of Chicago, and I see unemployment in our state at 12%. And it's very, very clear to me, not once, not twice, not 3, 4, or 5 times, but on 6 separate occasions, Mark Kirk has voted to extend unemployment compensation to a needy population here in the city of Chicago. I want somebody who's going to extend a warm, welcoming hand of the government in time of needs. And some of you will say, but Luis, is there money for this? Well, let me tell you something. There is. We can do it. Because it seems nonsensical to me to argue and be this budget hawk, right? Well, guess what? We have the war in Iraq. We have the war in Afghanistan. nearly $1 trillion spent. Prescription drug medicine passed in the House floor at 4 in the morning, twisting members' arms. $400 billion in a decade. We have a tax break that was sent from 201 to 210. You know what? That's $2.5 trillion. Mira, you didn't worry too much about balancing the budget. Don't try to balance the budget on the back of unemployed, poor working men and women in this city today. There is, if you have the priorities, and those are the priorities of Alexis Janulias. So I'm going to work really hard. Tomorrow, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Senator, I'm going to go visit your good friend. I'm going out to New Jersey. I'm going to spend the evening with Bob Menendez. I spoke to him this morning. He said to say hello to Senator Durbin, because he says he's a strong, valiant leader for our community. And he said, Luis, tomorrow, as we go over, I want you to come. We're going to review his bill tomorrow. You know, Alexis, I'm going to tell him that in Chicago, we're making sure that he's going to introduce that bill this week. But I'm going to tell him that in this Congress, Chicago's going to make sure that they send them somebody on November 2nd that can co-sponsor the first comprehensive immigration bill in the U.S. Senate.